The stars flickered through the viewport of the research vessel Zenith's eye as Commander Vree studied the planet below. His 4 eyes narrowed with professional caution. The world looked peaceful enough: vast silver forests, crystalline mountains that caught the light of twin suns, and lakes that glowed with an inner luminescence. "Beautiful, isn't it?" his second officer chirped, her feathers rustling with excitement. "Beautiful things often kill you," Vree muttered. He had served in the Galactic Survey Corps for 30 cycles, and that experience had taught him to trust his instincts. Right now, those instincts were screaming. The planet had no name yet, just a designation: GC-7731. It had been flagged for investigation after long-range scans detected massive life forms and unusual energy signatures. The Council wanted answers. They always wanted answers. "Preparing landing shuttle," the navigator announced. "Atmospheric composition is breathable for most species. Temperature ranges are within acceptable parameters. No hostile flora or fauna detected on initial scans." Vree authorized the mission. 12 crew members from 6 different species boarded the shuttle. They were professionals trained for first contact scenarios. They carried no weapons, Council regulations for peaceful exploration. The shuttle descended through wispy clouds. As they broke through the final layer, someone gasped. In a clearing ahead, something moved. Something enormous. It was a dragon. Not the small, primitive creature some worlds had. This was a being of impossible majesty. Its scales were pure white, like fresh snow, but they shimmered with rainbow light that seemed to come from within. The creature was easily 40 meters long, with wings folded against its massive body. Its eyes, ancient and intelligent, turned toward the descending shuttle. "Magnificent," Vree whispered. Then the fear hit. It wasn't natural fear, the kind that comes from facing a predator. This was something else entirely. It crashed into their minds like a tidal wave of pure terror. Vree's heart hammered against his chest. His vision tunneled. Every instinct in his body screamed one word: run. The pilot seized at the controls, his hands trembling violently. The shuttle lurched sideways. Someone was screaming. Several crew members had collapsed, unconscious. Vree tried to speak, to give orders, but his throat had closed. He couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel the overwhelming certainty that death was reaching for him with patient claws. The shuttle crashed into the trees. Vree didn't remember the impact. When he regained consciousness 3 days later aboard the rescue ship, 6 of his crew were dead. The others would never recover. They stared at walls, trapped in endless nightmares, mumbling about white death and eyes like frozen stars. Vree's report was clear: the planet was forbidden, quarantined. Whatever lived there was too dangerous for contact. But the Galactic Council needed to be certain. They sent the Kryn, a warrior species that claimed to fear nothing. The Kryn Expeditionary Force consisted of 20 battle-hardened soldiers in powered armor. They lasted 4 hours before their distress beacon activated. The rescue team found them catatonic, their advanced armor soiled with their own waste, eyes wide and unseeing. The Thalassi tried next. They were telepaths, confident they could shield their minds. They never even landed. The moment they entered low orbit, all 17 crew members went mad simultaneously. Their ship drifted for 2 weeks before anyone found it. 5 more attempts over 3 years. 5 more failures. Different species, different approaches. The results were always the same: madness, death, or both. The dragons never pursued. Never attacked beyond that initial psychic assault. They simply existed on their beautiful, terrible world, waiting. The Galactic Council issued a final decree. GC-7731 was declared a Class 5 existential threat. No ships were to approach within 10 light hours. The White Dragons became legend, a nightmare story told to young explorers about the universe's hidden dangers. The planet was marked in red on every star chart. A warning to all who sailed the cosmic seas: here there be dragons. And they will break your mind. The blockade satellites were placed. The sector was closed. Everyone agreed, some things were better left alone. That agreement lasted for 7 years. Then the human colony ship New Dawn suffered a catastrophic engine failure at the worst possible moment, and tumbling through space, unable to stop, it fell toward the forbidden world. Nobody expected what would happen next. The New Dawn hit the ground hard. Metal screamed. Systems exploded. When the emergency lights flickered on, Captain Sarah Chen counted survivors: 43 souls from a ship that had carried 200. Her hands shook as she sealed the hull breaches. They had maybe 3 days of air. Maybe. Then the fear came. It rolled over them like ice water flooding their minds. Sarah's legs gave out. She collapsed against the wall, gasping. Around her, grown men and women curled into balls, whimpering. Someone was praying. Someone else was sobbing uncontrollably. The ship's doctor vomited from pure terror. Through the cracked viewport, Sarah saw it. A dragon. Massive and white, its scales catching the alien sunlight. It stood perhaps 100 meters away, simply watching them. Not attacking. Just observing. But its presence alone was crushing their sanity. Sarah tried to think. Tried to form a plan. But her mind was fragmenting, splitting apart under the weight of primal dread. She couldn't do this. Nobody could. They were all going to die here, frozen in fear until their air ran out. In the chaos, nobody noticed the toddler. Maya Chen was 18 months old. She had slept through the crash, cushioned in her emergency pod. Now she woke up, confused by all the noise. The adults were acting strange, lying on the floor and making scared sounds. Maya didn't understand. She saw the broken door leading outside. Sunlight streamed through. It looked warm and pretty. She crawled toward the light. Outside the air was sweet. Maya stood on wobbly legs, looking around with wide brown eyes. The silver trees were beautiful. Everything sparkled. She giggled and took a step forward, then another. Walking was still new and exciting. Something big moved ahead. Maya looked up and up and up. The white dragon was even more magnificent up close. Its scales seemed to glow from inside, shifting through soft colors like soap bubbles. Its eyes were the color of winter sky, ancient and deep. Maya clapped her hands with delight. Big, she announced proudly. It was one of her favorite words. The dragon froze. For the first time in 3,000 years, Verathorn the Ancient felt genuine shock. The tiny creature showed no fear. None at all. This had never happened before. Every thinking being that came near him was overwhelmed by the psychic defense his species had evolved millennia ago. But this small human simply smiled at him. Verathorn carefully lowered his massive head, bringing one enormous eye level with the child. He studied her with fascination. She was so small. So fragile. Her mind was strange, simple and bright, not yet formed into the complex patterns that his fear projection normally shattered. Maya reached out her tiny hands toward the great eye. Pretty, she said. Something stirred in Verathorn's ancient heart. Loneliness. He had been lonely for so very long. All dragons had. They hadn't chosen this isolation. Their defensive ability made them prisoners of their own evolution. Every species that approached them fled in terror or went mad. For centuries, the dragons had lived in silence, cut off from the rest of the galaxy. But this child, she felt nothing but curiosity and joy. Verathorn extended one talon, moving with infinite care. The claw was longer than Maya's entire body, sharp enough to cut through starship hulls. Maya grabbed it with both hands and laughed. She tried to climb it like it was a toy. The dragon made a sound, a deep, rumbling purr that vibrated through the ground. He gently lifted the child, raising her to eye level. Maya pressed her small hand against his scaled cheek. Her touch was warm. Inside the ship, Sarah Chen's fear suddenly lessened just a fraction. She managed to lift her head. Through the viewport she saw something impossible. Her daughter, her baby girl, was sitting in a dragon's palm, playing patty cake against its enormous snout. The dragon was watching Maya with an expression Sarah recognized despite the alien features. It was the look of someone who had been alone too long, finally finding a friend. Maya's laughter echoed across the clearing, bright and fearless, the sound of innocence bridging an impossible gap. Days passed in careful steps. Verathorn learned to dampen his psychic emissions when Maya was near, like turning down the volume on a speaker. It took concentration, but the ancient dragon found he could control what had always seemed automatic. The other humans still felt fear in his presence, but it was manageable now, like standing near a cliff edge instead of falling off one. Sarah Chin forced herself to walk outside each morning. Her legs trembled. Her heart raced. But her daughter was out there, playing with a creature that had driven entire military forces insane. She had to try. Mama? Maya called, waving from where she sat between Verathorn's massive foreclaws. Look, big friend. The dragon's eyes met Sarah's. She saw intelligence there. Understanding. And something else, hope. Thank you, Sarah whispered, for not hurting her. Verathorn rumbled softly. He wished desperately that he could speak to this woman, explain that he would rather tear off his own wings than harm the small one. Maya had given him something precious, proof that connection was possible. That evening, 3 more dragons appeared. They were smaller than Verathorn, their scales ranging from pearl white to cream. They kept their distance, but Sarah could feel their curiosity pushing against the lingering fear in her mind. Maya squealed with delight. More big friends? One dragon, barely the size of an elephant, crept closer. Younger, Sarah realized. Maybe even a juvenile. Maya toddled toward it without hesitation. The young dragon touched her gently with its snout, and Maya hugged it, her small arms barely reaching around its neck. "She's teaching them," said Marcus Webb, the ship's engineer. He had joined Sarah outside, though sweat beaded on his forehead from the effort of overcoming his fear. "Look, that young one is learning control from watching the big one." He was right. The juvenile dragon's fear aura was weaker, more focused. It was actively trying not to frighten the humans. Over the next weeks, a strange routine developed. Maya played with the dragon young while the adults on both sides watched. Verathorn would arrange objects in patterns. Sarah would rearrange them. Slowly, painfully, they developed a basic visual language. The breakthrough came when Marcus drew pictures in the dirt. A stick figure representing a human. A crude dragon shape. Maya playing between them. Verathorn studied the drawings for a long moment, then carefully scraped his own images into the ground with a claw. Dragons. Many dragons. Alone. A different shape, something with too many legs and sharp angles. The dragons showing fear symbols. The other creatures attacking. Then just dragons again, isolated, with no other shapes near them. "They're not monsters," Sarah breathed. "They're refugees." Marcus nodded slowly. Whatever that other species was, it made them develop this defense. And now they can't turn it off. Or couldn't until Maya, Sarah finished. Communication improved daily. The dragons learned to pulse their fear aura in patterns, short bursts for yes, long for no. The humans created a board with simple pictures. Maya, understanding none of the complexity, continued to play, building towers of rocks with dragon hatchlings, chasing floating seed pods through the silver forest, napping curled against warm-scaled bodies. One afternoon, Verathorn made a sound, a complex series of clicks and rumbles. He repeated it while pointing at Maya. "I think that's his word for her," Sarah said. She tried to copy the sound, managing a rough approximation. The dragon's eyes brightened. He pointed at Sarah and made another sound. Then at himself, a deeper, more elaborate rumble. They were exchanging names. By the end of the month, 12 humans could stay outside for hours without panic. The dragons had brought gifts, strange fruits from the forest, crystals that hummed with soft music, woven grasses that changed colors in the light. The humans shared their food, their tools, their music played through salvaged speakers. Maya sat in the middle of it all, a tiny ambassador who understood nothing of politics or history. She only knew that everyone was playing together now, and that made her happy. She had no idea that her friendship was rewriting the rules of the galaxy. The warning came at dawn. Verathorn lifted his head sharply, his scales flashing with agitation. Every dragon on the planet felt it simultaneously, a disturbance in the space above, familiar and terrible. The ancient enemy had returned. Sarah was drinking coffee when the ground trembled. Dragons were taking flight everywhere, their wings creating thunderous booms. Verathorn's fear aura spiked uncontrollably, and even after months of exposure, Sarah fell to her knees. "What's happening?" Marcus shouted over the noise. Verathorn couldn't answer in words, but his panic was clear. He scraped frantically in the dirt, the same sharp-angled shapes from his story weeks ago. The screech. Then he drew crude circles falling from the sky. Ships. Many ships. The New Dawn's damaged sensors confirmed it an hour later. 37 vessels entering orbit. The ships were organic-looking, all curves and chitin plating, like insects grown to massive size. They moved with coordinated precision that made Sarah's skin crawl. A transmission came through in galactic common language. "Attention human survivors. You have trespassed on quarantine Screeth territory. Evacuate immediately or be destroyed along with the native hostiles." Hostiles. Sarah barked into the communicator. "These dragons haven't hurt anyone." Irrelevant. This world and its resources belong to the Screeth Collective. The creatures you call dragons are designated as livestock. You have 6 hours to leave. Sarah cut the transmission and immediately sent a desperate message to the Galactic Council. She explained everything, the dragon's true nature, the friendship they had built, the danger they all faced. She begged for help. The response came back within an hour. Cold. Official. The Galactic Council does not intervene in quarantine zones. You entered forbidden space. The consequences are your own. Safe travels. They were alone. Marcus gathered the 43 colonists in the clearing. "We have one shuttle that might make orbit. It can carry maybe 20 people. We draw lots." "No," Sarah interrupted. We're not leaving. Sarah, be reasonable. These dragons saved Maya. They've shown us nothing but friendship. I won't abandon them. She looked at the gathered humans. Anyone who wants to take the shuttle can go. I'm staying to fight. Silence fell. Then old Dr. Reeves stepped forward. I didn't survive 70 years and a ship crashed just to run from bullies. I'm staying. Me too, said Marcus. One by one, every human chose to stay. They had nothing but salvaged weapons, damaged equipment and 43 bodies against a fleet. But they were staying. Verathorn watched this display with his ancient eyes. He understood. These strange, small creatures with their soft skin and short lives were choosing to stand with dragons. No species had ever done that before. The planning began immediately. The dragons could fight. They were powerful, their psychic abilities devastating in close range. But the Screeth had adapted over millennia. Their hive mind was partially resistant to the fear aura. And they had weapons that could punch through dragon scales. Sarah had an idea. The Screeth remember dragons as victims, as prey. They don't know about us. They think we're just stupid humans who got lost. We use that, Marcus added, catching on. We're the surprise element. The humans had explosives from mining equipment. They had the shuttle's remaining missiles. They had knowledge of tactics and strategy that the peaceful dragons had never needed. Most importantly, they were completely immune to their allies' greatest weapon now. The plan was insane. It relied on perfect timing, desperate courage, and Maya's young dragon friend Shimmerscale being brave enough to do something terrifying. As the Screeth ships began their descent, Sarah held her daughter close. Maya, now almost 3, looked up at the sky where dark shapes were falling. Bad things, Mama? Yes, baby. Bad things. But we have big friends, remember? Maya nodded seriously. Big friends are strong. That's right. And sometimes being friends means standing together when scary things come. The first Screeth landers touched down at the forest edge. Thousands of insectoid warriors poured out, their weapons charging with ominous hums. Verathorn roared and 40 dragons answered. The humans checked their weapons. The battle for the nameless planet had begun. The Screeth expected an easy victory. They had conquered the dragons before, millennia ago, when the dragons were alone and frightened. They remembered the white creatures as broken things that could only hide behind their psychic screams. They were not prepared for what happened next. The first wave of Screeth warriors rushed forward, chittering with confidence. Verathorn and the elder dragons unleashed their full fear aura, no longer holding back. The psychic wave hit the Screeth like a hammer. Their hive-mind connection fractured. Individual warriors collapsed, twitching and confused. While the Screeth reeled, the humans struck from the flanks. Marcus led a team with mining explosives, targeting the support legs of the landed ships. Sarah's group fired the shuttle missiles at the communication arrays. They moved fast, using the silver forest for cover, hitting and vanishing before the Screeth could respond. The younger dragons, led by Shimmerscale, attacked from above. They had practiced this maneuver for days, though none believed they would actually need it. They dropped rocks, heavy boulders carried to great heights, onto the Screeth formations below. Simple. Effective. Devastating. The Screeth adapted quickly. Their ships in orbit began bombardment. Energy beams lanced down from the sky, turning patches of forest to ash. 3 dragons fell, their screams echoing across the battlefield. Dr. Reeves died shielding a wounded dragon hatchling from falling debris. But the Alliance held. The dragons learned human tactics, flanking, retreating, using terrain. The humans learned to read dragon mood signals, coordinating attacks through roars and wing positions. Maya stayed in a protected cave with the youngest hatchlings, but even she helped, keeping the little ones calm while their parents fought. The turning point came on the 3rd day. The Screeth Queen Mind descended in a massive command ship, confident she could restore order. Verathorn had been waiting for this. He knew the Screeth's weakness. Their hive mind made them strong, but it also meant one powerful psychic shock could cascade through their entire network. He gathered every dragon on the planet. 40 minds linking together, something they had never done before because their combined fear aura would have killed anything nearby. But the humans had taught them coordination, timing, trust. Now, Sarah screamed into her radio. Every human dropped into pre-dug trenches and covered their heads. They had trained for this moment, building up resistance slowly over months. The dragons released everything at once. A psychic tsunami directed purely at the Screeth fleet. The Queen Mind tried to shield her swarm, but the combined force was too much. The hive mind shattered like glass. Thousands of Screeth warriors stood frozen, suddenly individual for the first time in their lives, terrified and confused. The remaining orbital ships fled. Without the Queen Mind's coordination, they had no stomach for continued battle. The grounded Screeth surrendered within hours. The Galactic Council, which had been monitoring from a safe distance, suddenly paid attention. Emergency session transcripts later revealed heated debates. How had primitive dragons and a handful of humans defeated a Screeth invasion fleet? It should have been impossible. Ambassador Tlorn arrived 2 weeks later, his ship broadcasting peaceful intentions from a distance. Sarah met him at the landing site, flanked by Vera Thorn. The ambassador stared at the dragon with barely concealed terror, even at reduced psychic intensity. "We underestimated the situation," Tlorn admitted. "The council wishes to open formal negotiations." "You left us to die," Sarah said flatly. "Yes. That was an error in judgment." The ambassador's translator struggled with his embarrassment. "But you've proven something remarkable. The dragons are not the threat we believed. And humans, your species has a unique ability to forge bonds where others see only danger." 3 months later, the Dragon-Human Concordat was official. The planet was renamed Unity. The Galactic Council provided resources to rebuild, though they kept their distance. Not every species could tolerate the dragon's presence, even controlled. But some could learn. Slowly, carefully, other ambassadors began to arrive. They came with their own children, following humanity's example. Young minds, not yet full of fear and prejudice, learning to play with dragon hatchlings in the Silver Forests. Maya, now 4 years old, became something unprecedented, a child ambassador. She didn't give speeches or negotiate treaties. She simply showed others how to approach Shimmerscale, how to laugh when he did his clumsy flying tricks, how to not be afraid. Sarah watched her daughter one evening playing tag with a dragon, a Thalassi child, and a young Kryn whose warrior parents watched in amazement. Vera Thorn settled beside her, his massive presence now comfortable rather than terrifying. Sarah had learned some of his language. He rumbled softly, a phrase that meant something like, "grateful hope future." "Yeah," Sarah agreed, leaning against his warm scales. "We built something good here." Above them, ships from a dozen worlds circled Unity. Some came to trade, some to learn, all of them drawn by the impossible truth. The galaxy's greatest monsters had only been waiting for someone brave enough to reach out. Sometimes that someone just needed to be small enough not to know what fear meant. In the settlement below, construction continued. Human buildings next to dragon nesting sites. Schools where children of multiple species learned together. Gardens where silver trees grew alongside earth flowers. A new kind of world. Built on friendship. Started by a baby's laugh. The galaxy would never be the same.